that Africa is the next frontier of global growth and productivity. The African continent has an unrivaled natural resource endowment with the youngest population of all continents. Africa continues to be an expanding market for goods and services. The African Continental Free Trade Area has the potential to really change the economic and social fortunes of our continent. We will seek G20 support for the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Adjustment Fund that will enhance inclusive growth, sustainable and regional integration as well. We will look to consolidate various G20 initiatives related to Africa into a flagship agreement for cooperation that is focused on implementation of investments in productive sectors in Africa in areas such as infrastructure. Many of you would know that infrastructure is propelling Africa's growth at the moment. We seek investments in development of skills that will also fuel this infrastructure revolution, particularly for Africa's youth and the economic empowerment of the women of our continent. In the health sector, we would want the G20 to support the production of pharmaceutical products such as therapeutics, as well as vaccines to deal with pandemics. The digitization of the continent, particularly when it comes to artificial intelligence, will enhance trade and development, and they are key enablers that we want to see fully developed. Through its G20 presidency, South Africa is well positioned as a country to advance global cooperation and to build partnerships for growth as well as for development. This is so because South Africa has a rich history of inclusive dialogue and common action. Over the last few years, the South African government has been working very closely with social partners in business in South Africa and with labor and with civil society to address the key national challenges that face our country, as well as to drive inclusive growth. And this cooperation culture and the approach that we have developed over many years has taken us to a higher level. And with the establishment, particularly of the Government of National Unity that you referred to, following the elections that we held in May last year, the Government of National Unity, or the GNU as we call it, made up of 10 political parties, a government that we were able to set up in exactly 4 weeks, when many other countries, particularly in the global north, take up to 1 year, and we did it in just 30 days. So this has been vital to stability, as well as inclusive governance in our country, and has largely contributed to greater interest amongst investors in South Africa's economic prospects. And I do believe that some of those investors who are having a fresh look at South Africa are also here, and we are going to be interacting with them. The seeds of human progress were sown in Africa. In Africa, the earliest forms of cooperation were forged and developed. As the leaders of the G20 return to Africa, we make a call that we all harness these essential capabilities that will make us take action to build a better and a fairer world. We intend that the G20 in Johannesburg this year should really be a forum where cooperation and collaboration amongst the leading economies of the world will be taken to a higher level. Acting together, we should build an inclusive, just, and equal world in which all may prosper, leaving no one and no country behind. So I look forward, Professor, to welcoming you to the G20 in Johannesburg later this year. And even if you do not participate, any of you do not participate in any of the 130 G20-related meetings, because that's how the G20 works. It builds up to the Leaders' Summit, which will be held later in the year through the various meetings in finance stream and trade stream and many others. I'd like to invite you to come, even if you do not participate in any of these meetings, just to come to South Africa and come and see South Africa for yourself, the most beautiful country in the world. So I invite you to come, and thank you very much.
Mr. President, you have shown us in a very comprehensive way what you want to achieve, a better and more inclusive and more sustainable world under your leadership at the G20. And I can promise you I will be in South Africa. But we spoke about the potential and the role of the G20. We have very little time, and I want to acknowledge the strong participation of your government, which gives an opportunity to follow up on many of those issues and many of the opportunities of cooperation with your country. But to conclude our session, I just have one question, very simple question. Mr. President, if you would explain to a major foreign investor why he should invest into South Africa at this particular moment. 3 reasons.
I would say, besides it being the most beautiful country in the world, I would say...
I agree, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And you do come for holidays as well. There are quite a number of reasons, and some of those reasons are just to come to see the progress that we have been making. After years of some decline, we've been making progress in implementing our reforms. We've embarked on a major program of economic reforms, and of course the political stability that we are now forging ahead with supports those reforms, and we're focusing on economic growth, job creation, and making our country more attractive to investors. Many people are now saying we are now prepared to look at South Africa anew because we have resolved our energy crisis. We went through a debilitating energy crisis. A few months ago, we've now gone through almost a year without having any blackouts. And a number of countries around the world do have their own blackouts, but ours was a major crisis. We've solved that, and largely through the reforms that we've embarked upon to reform our energy sector, and we're also reforming our governance as well as dealing with the corruption levels that had risen to a high level, and we are addressing that. And in sorting out our governance, we do believe that we make South Africa a lot more attractive. And I do want to lay stress on the partnership that we have crafted with business, with labor, and various community organizations is a solid one. And it's a compact that we've put together that is helping us as a country to address many, many challenges. There aren't many countries that I know of in the world where there is long-term cooperation between business, labor, and government at such a close range. And we can count many areas where progress is being made in that regard. And that talks to stability, and that talks to promise for greater economic governance, greater economic growth that South Africa is now leading the way in. And also the important role that we play as a country with regard to our continent, particularly when it comes to trade. We are the most industrialized country on the continent and continue to say that we are the gateway into Africa. By dint of being the most industrialized country and with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, that opens up many opportunities for investors to utilize our country, and without downplaying any country on the continent and other countries as well, to be the launchpad of their investment processes. So South Africa is ready for investments, and we are pregnant with great promise going forward as a country.
Thank you, Mr. President. We wish you a continuation, and I may say, and certainly I'm correct in saying so, an acceleration of your successful path, using the full potential of South Africa and the continent, and all our best wishes accompany you for achieving the results which you have described to us in your G20 presidency. Ladies and gentlemen, let's express our appreciation for the presence of the President of South Africa, of the Republic of South Africa, and the G20 here this afternoon. Thank you.